Are the New York Giants gearing up for a draft day surprise? Let's talk about it. My name's Paul. This is Big Apple Sports. Thanks for tuning in. Before I get going, take just a quick second, like and subscribe. It really helps me out, and then you can become a part of this awesome Giants community. So, we are less than 2 weeks from the NFL draft. If you ask Vegas who the Giants are taking, the odds on favorite are Sonny Styles. I think a lot of people, if you were to if you were forced to bet your house on who the Giants are taking, I think a lot of people are thinking Sonny Styles. But as I see different news reports coming out about who the Giants are bringing in for interviews, what they're targeting, I'm starting to wonder if they're not going to draft Sonny Styles and they're gearing up for a surprise on draft day. So before I get into some of the news that's getting me to think about it, what I want you guys to do is I want you to think about the Giants' biggest needs right now. After I kind of talk them out here, comment below and tell me which one you think they are. I think we can all agree the Giants need another linebacker. The Giants need another guard. The Giants need somebody on the interior D-line, maybe multiple people if they trade Dexter Lawrence. And then they need help in the secondary. But then you have to start thinking, okay, and maybe a little receiver help too. But then you start thinking, okay, which one of these is the most pressing need? And a receiver to me is least of all those. I'm high on Darnell Mooney. You got Malik Neighbors back. I'm high. I think Calvin Austin's solid. I think Isaiah Likely will play some receiver. I think you can take a receiver in the fourth round and be comfortable with that receiver group next year. Then you talk about offensive guard. I definitely think they could use somebody, but they did bring in Falele from the Ravens. There's a lot of talk about Evan Neal really putting in the work. There are some options on the team. Looking at linebacker, it's easy to think okay, we need somebody next to Tremaine Edmonds. But, a year ago, we all thought Micah McFadden was that guy. He's going to be back from his injury. Linebacker is not a premium position. So is it possible the Giants are maybe planning on Micah McFadden as their other inside linebacker and are just going to be looking for depth in the draft? And then you look at the secondary and it's okay, if we roll in with Javon Holland and Tyler Nubin at safety, I don't think that's too bad. But corner, man, Paulson Adebo didn't have the best year. He didn't even show up to the voluntary mini camps. It does sound like he's been in talks with the coaching staff, so hopefully he'll, be back and playing well. Then you got Greg Newsome on a one-year deal, Drew Phillips. It's is maybe the biggest need a corner? So comment below. Let me know what you think the biggest need is. But to me, I'm looking at it, and it's hard to feel like linebacker is the biggest need. If you roll in with Micah McFadden, Tremaine Edmonds, and a fifth-round pick at linebacker, and maybe you sign another veteran in free agency at some point. I don't think that's a terrible linebacking core, and I'm not sure that's as big of a need as guard or secondary or any of these other things. But at the same time, Harbaugh has said we're going best player available, and it really might be Sonny Styles. But now, as I start looking at some of this other news, it does make me wonder. Maybe they're not looking at Sonny Styles. Maybe they really are gearing up for, like I said, a late round selection for linebacker just to build depth, and they might be going a different way in the first round. So there's a couple different bits of news that have me wondering if they're looking in a different direction, and then I'll show you a couple mock drafts just to kind of show you what that might look like. So one thing I thought was interesting was Justin Tuck this week was talking with somebody at Sports Illustrated, and he started talking about what a huge role Antrel Rolle had on his Giants teams back in the day and how he sees Caleb Downs as a very similar player. Said he's someone who can play all over the field, much like Antrel Rolle did for us. We all know how important having that type of player on your field, whether you need to play the slot, safety, in a dime package playing middle linebacker, you can do whatever with him, and he was so big for us there. And that's where you start to look at Caleb Downs, and it's what? That's not just a thing with, the Giants' defenses of old. Harbaugh has loved having that safety position. I mean, Kyle Hamilton was one of the biggest additions to this defense. A lot of people refer to him as the Lamar Jackson of their defense, where he's just their everything man who does everything. Like, is it possible that you draft a Caleb Downs and that solves your safety issue? That deepens your cornerback room. That even helps you at linebacker. That helps you mix up your blitzes, and it literally helps you at every layer of your defense. You could make the argument that Sonny Styles could do that too with his background as a safety, but you're not going to put him at nickel corner the same way you could put Caleb Downs there. So there might even be a little bit more versatility there from Caleb Downs. And then you combine that with the fact that the Giants continue to meet with late round linebackers. Last week I did a big deep dive into Michigan linebacker Jimmy Rolder, who had a top 30 visit with the Giants. He's somebody I would personally love to have. Wink Martindale coached him in college, so he probably would have some familiarity in a Harbaugh system and is really an under-the-radar prospect. I think would be great. But he's probably a 5th or 6th round pick. Now you got them meeting with Northern Illinois linebacker Quinn Erweiler. They met at the American Bowl. And it makes you wonder, two things could be happening here. Like, they could want Sonny Styles top 5 and then just want more depth at linebacker later on. Like, some people project Erweiler as a potential undrafted free agent target. But it does make you wonder, would they feel comfortable with Micah McFadden, Tremaine Edmunds, and then just, a couple rookies at linebacker as depth, considering you could put Caleb Downs at linebacker a certain amount of the time? I don't know. It's definitely possible. And then you see other bits of news coming out, like in the second round, the Giants have been looking at a lot of offensive guards. They met with Chase Besantis. They met with Keelan Rutledge, and it looks like they're targeting a second-round guard. And then it also was reported last week that cornerback was a real possibility at number 5. And that's kind of what I alluded to at the beginning of the video is, I don't know how super confident any of us feel in our corner room. And even if they're decent for 1 year, Greg Newsome's going to be a free agent. Paulson Adebo, if he doesn't have a great year, is probably going to get cut. Do they need a cornerstone cornerback player? That's definitely a possibility as well. Maybe it is just Caleb Downs providing a little extra cornerback depth to play in dime packages there. Another thing the Giants have shown a lot of interest in, I talked about this the other day a little bit, is the top wide receivers. They have done a suspicious amount of visits with some of these top receivers in the draft, including Casey Concepcion from Texas A&M, Makai Lemon from USC, Ted Hurst from Georgia State, and Carnell Tate from Ohio State. Now, a lot of those guys are more second-round guys. Carnell Tate's really the only one projected to be kind of picked up where the Giants are selecting. But it just feels like they might be going in a different direction than what people think. And one of the big things that I really think could be happening is a potential Giants trade back. And that's something that a lot of people have selected the Giants as one of the top 10 teams most likely to trade back. They don't have the 3rd round pick this year because of the Dart trade last year. Well worth the trade, but it would be nice to get, another pick in the 3rd round. And then you have to think some of the positions that might be going number 5. You might see a wide receiver and you might see an edge rusher, and those are 2 needs that I don't really see the Giants. The Giants could use depth at both those positions, not so much edge, but they really don't need to use a blue chip top 5 pick on one of those positions. So could you see a team like the Saints or the Dolphins or the Bengals, a team who really needs an edge rusher? A couple of those teams need a wide receiver. Could you see them wanting to jump like the Cleveland Browns to get Carnell Tate? Could you see them wanting to, could you see the Bengals wanting to jump the Saints to get their edge rusher? I think all those things are possible. And then having, the ability for the Giants to add a 2nd or 3rd round pick, maybe both, could be huge for addressing this wide array of needs. And, every team sets up a huge draft board. You can't just lock in on guard in the 2nd round and not be able to pivot if all the guards you were looking at got picked. You want to be able to, have a receiver you like to pivot to or a different position there. So, every team's going to do their due diligence. You have to take draft smoke for what it is. It's all smoke Who knows what's happening? Who knows what could be at play here with the Giants trying to trick teams into thinking they're moving one way or another. But historically, Joe Schoen has always drafted people that he has visited with. There have not been very many players who did not get an in-person visit who he ended up drafting. So it is significant when you see that he sets up these meetings. These people really are possibilities. And so just thinking about a couple ways that a mock draft could go. And this is all, I didn't even include a potential Dexter Lawrence or Kayvon Thibodeaux trade. I did a poll yesterday. If you haven't voted in it yet, I encourage you to go vote in it. I think last I saw it was 35% of people want them to trade only Thibodeaux. Not many people want them to trade Dex. And about a third of people want them to trade both Thibodeaux and Dexter Lawrence. And then another close to third said don't trade either of them. I think I'm team trade Thibodeaux. I feel like you trade Thibodeaux and we still have good edge rushers. And now maybe we get an extra second or third round pick. I don't think I'd trade him for a fourth or fifth, which some people are rumoring is his price. If that's the case, then I say keep him and then just get the comp pick next year if he ends up leaving. Or maybe he has a great beginning of the year and you can trade him for more halfway through the season. But Lawrence, I'm against trading him. I know it's frustrating that he wants a contract. It's frustrating that he's holding out. But at the same time, you trade him and an already weak position group, the cupboard is just bare there. And you're probably using the selection you traded him for and potentially a first or early second round pick to continue to address that interior D-line. So I'm team trade Lawrence. But looking at the mock drafts I tried out today, so the first one I traded back 8 slots and was still able to get Mansour Delane. Maybe you end up getting the guy out of Tennessee there anyways. Went guard in the second round with Chase Besantis, who they just met with. Went wide receiver since they've been meeting with a lot of receivers with the extra, I think this is a late second that I picked up. Got Ted Hurst out of Georgia State, who they've met with. Then addressed interior O-line. Brought in a running back because they probably will do that at some point. Brought in a couple linebackers, a safety, an extra center just to build more depth there. So that was option 1. Option 2 is I only traded back a few slots and I took Caleb Downs. Then went with another guard and another receiver with the second round picks. And then kind of did the same thing where I stuck with interior D-line, got a running back, added some secondary depth, some D-line depth, some linebacker depth, all that. So, I think, honestly, you can let me know in the comments if you don't like the way these drafts look. But truthfully, as much as I love Sonny Styles, and if they take Sonny Styles, I'll be thrilled. I truly believe he's going to be a Fred Warner type of player. But as I look at, Micah McFadden and Tremaine Edmunds together, I don't know that that's such a bad group. And linebacker is a position where you can get pretty good guys in the second, third. Even, I didn't do a second round linebacker in either of these drafts, but you look at Jacob Rodriguez and Anthony Hill and Jeremiah Trotter. And Josiah Trotter, his son, Jeremiah's son. There are some good linebackers in this draft on all 3 days of the draft. So it's as much as I love Sonny Styles, would they be better off targeting a corner or a safety, which might be a bigger position of need? I think no matter what they do, it would be great to trade back and add more picks. But it's hard not to feel like these would be a better draft than going Sonny Styles number 5. You take your guard in the second round, and then all of a sudden you lose out on the Ted Hurst, Grayson Holton second, third round picks, and you go all the way to the 4th round and have to address wide receiver or running back or other needs there. So you guys comment below. Let me know what you think about all that. But I feel like with all the different news I'm hearing, I'm wondering if Sonny Styles to the Giants number 5 isn't as big of a lock as some people have kind of thought in recent days. So we'll see. Still got, 10 to 12 more days until the draft. Make sure you comment below. Give me your thoughts on that. Make sure you subscribe and like on your way out as well, because there's a ton more Giants content that's going to be coming these next few weeks.